You look at older cities that are mostly poor, mostly African American, and you see a lot of the same things going on. Crumbling schools, empty buildings, no real investment. We let these cities get to the point where they're just one bad decision away from complete collapse. The folks making these decisions don't care about people who live in Flint. Nobody in Flint wants sympathy. We just want justice.
5 years ago, a violent revolution removed Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi from power. But in the chaos that followed, an attack on U.S. personnel in Benghazi killed our ambassador there and several other employees, sparking an intense partisan debate here at home.
We were misled that there was supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that.
What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator.
Lost in that argument, however, is what's happening on the ground in Libya today, where, in the power vacuum Gaddafi left behind, ISIS is beginning to step in and fill the void.
This is the place where time stopped for America in Libya. It's the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. In 2012, the U.S. ambassador and 3 other Americans were killed in an Islamist attack by the group Ansar al-Sharia. But since then, the debate in America is focused on who is to blame for the events that happened that day, not what happened to Libya in the years afterwards. And what's happened is that Ansar al-Sharia and ISIS had teamed up to control much of the city for years.
While ISIS grew in Syria and Iraq, they're now gaining strength in a Libya which is controlled by 2 dueling governments. They've already taken control of an entire city in the center of the country, Sirte, and they've made advances all along the coast, including in Benghazi. For the past 18 months, the forces that are loyal to the eastern government have been fighting ISIS in Benghazi. We went to a neighborhood that was liberated from ISIS fighters only days earlier.
How safe is this street?
Colonel Jamal al-Zahawi is the commander of the Libyan Army Brigade that controls this area.
So this area here has just been freed of ISIS, Islamic State fighters, but they've left a lot of surprises behind, like this table here, which is wired to an IED. You can see the wire go up the frame so that when you open the door, it explodes. All this stuff is still very fresh and active.
Evidence of ISIS's presence was everywhere.
Looks like it.
Yes?
Yes.
You know?
I know this one. It's a famous brand.
While the neighborhood has been reclaimed, it remains an active war zone. We watched as the colonel's troops attacked an ISIS-controlled stronghold nearby.
They're moving an aircraft missile into position. That's no airplane, but they've fashioned it so that they can shoot it off of the ground. I hope they know how to make sure it explodes over there and not right here, because that's a 200-pound bomb. This area has been cleared of ISIS, but about a mile that way, they're still there, with that rocket's about to land.
The U.S. government recently raised the estimated number of ISIS fighters in Libya to as many as 6,000, double the number from a year earlier. Now discussions have started on whether the U.S. should support loosening a UN arms embargo on Libya and allow the arming of the forces fighting ISIS. General Khalifa Haftar is the head of the Libyan army for the internationally recognized Eastern government. He told us what's at stake if ISIS isn't defeated.
لكن هم بيتكلموا على أساس أن منطقة ليبيا بالذات هي منطقة استراتيجية يتم السيطرة عليها. لو سيطروا عليها مصر هذه بتضيع، الشرق والغرب بيضيعوا كلهم، مدوا ايديهم لأفريقيا، ثم أن الباب سيكون مفتوح على مصراعيه المن لأوروبا اعتمادا على الإمكانيات الموجودة في ليبيا. غاز، بترول، ذهب، ماس يورانيوم الجو الهادي هذا كله بيستخدموه هم لجلب يعني ملايين الناس عشان يعيشوا فيها.
That's why it's so important for General Haftar to defeat ISIS in Benghazi. On the outskirts of the city, we visited the front lines with a group of his special forces soldiers as they encircled an ISIS stronghold.
So we can hear gunfire probably coming from the cement factory, which we just passed. We're heading out on a patrol. The fighting here is house to house. They've put these holes in the wall so they don't have to walk down the streets. They use buildings like this, just people's houses, as positions now because this neighborhood has been turned into a front line. Wow, that's just a couple hundred yards from here. The position is down there.
ISIS is so close, soldiers sit in windows to guard against a surprise attack.
I do not envy this man's job, waiting for a bullet to come through this window.
السكول المدرسة صار منها جنب المدرسة 50 متر يكفي حوش على دورين عالية هاوس.
So right now they're just trying to draw them out of their holes with their fire.
We sat down with the commander of Haftar's special forces on the front line, Fadl Faraj al-Hassi.
Unfortunately, Americans stopped paying attention to what's happening in Benghazi after the American ambassador died here. He was killed by a group called Ansar al-Sharia. Now there's ISIS here as well. What's the difference between these two groups?
كلها جرثومة واحدة. طبعا المجموعة هذه تكونت من الدروع ومن أنصار الشريعة ومن تنظيم الدولة وبعدين طلعتنا داعش في الأخير التي تحارب فيها أمريكا في سوريا وكذلك في روسيا في سوريا كذلك في العراق.
What the fuck is that?
Why?
It's shooting. Who's shooting?
It's okay. My friend here is one dash.
Okay. There's obviously still fighting going on here. We just heard a couple of shots. Do you need America's help?
No, thank you. أنا أريد السلاح وذخيرة فقط. الرجال موجودون.
So apparently there's a sniper at the top of the brown house over there. So we should stay close to the wall when we're moving through this area.
Our camera crew made it safely across the field into cover behind this wall. But I was 100 yards behind when an ISIS sniper in a nearby house opened fire on us.
Were they shooting out or in? Huh? They were shooting out or in? Thank you, shukran. They're taking us to another position. This time it's one of their artillery firing positions.
The soldiers took us even closer to the ISIS-held cement factory we'd passed earlier. They said it was too dangerous without an escort. So this is what they sent. A Russian-made tank. In the previous week, General Haftar had driven ISIS fighters back from much of the city, except here. Now his fighters needed heavy artillery like this to soften up fortified ISIS defenses.
So what's your objective from this position?
الهدف بتاعنا نسيطر على المصنع مع تقدم الجيش اللي عندهم مسيطرين على المكان بالقناصة سلاح ثقيل فوق مشاع الأرض والتقدم وناخذوا المصنع لكن القناصة حيكون فيها الإصابات كبيرة عند الجنود. هذا العدو.
This isn't any anti-terrorist operation. This right here is full-on war.
While these forces seem to be winning the battle here for now, in another part of the country, ISIS has been on the offensive. Like at a checkpoint near the small town of Abu Ghraib, outside the ISIS-controlled city of Sirte, where soldiers from the Islamist-leaning Western government are trying to keep ISIS contained. Just months before we visited here, ISIS fighters launched a bloody raid. Here, seen on closed-circuit TV, The ISIS fighters arrive in pickup trucks, then fire at the checkpoint soldiers in the distance. One of the ISIS militants brazenly moves into the open without cover, then makes a cutthroat gesture to his enemy. The ISIS fighter on the left is shot. Before retreating, ISIS soldiers stick around long enough to kill 3 guards. Observers like attorney David Tafuri see attacks like these and worry that ISIS is slowly winning the battle for control of Libya. During the revolution, Tafuri flew to Benghazi to help the rebel government free up $1.5 billion in frozen Gaddafi assets. Since then, he's worked alongside Libyan officials to foster good governance within this fractured country.
Libya is on the brink of falling into chaos. And if something is not done soon, it will become a failed state. One of the biggest threats to the United States is having more failed states around the world. If ISIS takes control of a place like Libya, it will become much more powerful than it already is. It will have access to all of the oil resources that Libya has. It will have a foothold in North Africa, and ultimately it will strike against the United States and other Western countries.
While we were in Libya, we saw evidence that the United States was at least willing to intervene in Libya on a limited basis.
Overnight, we conducted an airstrike in Libya targeting an ISIL training camp near Sabratha. And the ISIL fighters at these facilities were planning external attacks on U.S. and other Western interests in the region.
On the day of the American attack, we set off for the site of the bombing. The city of Sabratha is all the way over on the western edge of the country and just 50 miles away from Tripoli. When we arrived, we were told as many as 200 ISIS fighters were still hiding in the city. It was hard to tell the good guys from the bad.
As soon as we got here, we got an escort from the local militia, which is a local Islamist militia as well, who up until now claimed that there was no ISIS here. But they said that they're going to take us to the site of the airstrike now, and we have to trust them because we don't really have any other choice.
At the bomb site, we discovered the power of a U.S. airstrike.
This place is completely annihilated. This is what the sharp end of the U.S. war on ISIS in Libya looks like.
This is a Kalashnikov, RPG, this and this.
So here's some of the ammo that was here when the airstrike took place.
You know, for kill people.
That's a big knife. They're saying that's for cutting people's heads off. So this looks like the Islamic State whiteboard because it says the Islamic State Caliphate on it, and obviously the Islamic State black flag.
While we were at the site, we heard that 2 Serbian diplomatic personnel, Slađana Stanković and Jovica Stepić, were among the dead.
They were kidnapped while they were living to Tunisia.
Oh my God, there's some of that woman's hair in here. And that's her watch and jewelry.
The militia commander said he removed her hair and other items on the day of the bombings to help identify her. The United States and Serbian governments agreed in March to fully investigate the circumstances surrounding the deaths of the diplomats. The target of the U.S. strike was a Tunisian named Nuruddin Shushani, the alleged mastermind behind 2 attacks inside Tunisia that claimed the lives of 60 people. It remains unclear whether Shushani died in the attack, but the American strike dealt a blow to ISIS in the region.
This is the city morgue. This is where they brought a lot of the bodies from the airstrike. Bloody mattresses, blood all over the floors. Wow, there's just a pile of body bags in here. Oh, it smells awful.
More than 40 ISIS militants were believed to have been killed in the attack. A few days after our trip to the bomb site, ISIS reminded the residents of Sabratha it hadn't gone away by killing 4 members of the same security team that had protected us on our visit. While the American airstrike showed how effective U.S. air power can be in the global fight against ISIS, it was only the 3rd such strike inside Libya in the last 5 years.
The West and the U.S. are very reluctant to intervene in any country because of the bad experiences we've had in Iraq and in Afghanistan. But at the same time, we're caught in this very difficult situation where if we don't intervene, groups like ISIS will take control and take power and will ultimately engage in terrorist attacks against the West that will require us to come back and fight them.
Late last year, the United States reportedly sent special operations teams to Libya to coordinate the fight against ISIS. But General Haftar says more can be done to roll back ISIS gains in Libya, a strategic country whose location along the Mediterranean is the gateway to Europe and beyond.
ولكن نحن متأكدين أن نحن لابد أن ننتصر بعون الله تعالى. لكن فيما لو خاب ظننا في هذا كله وانتصروا ستشوف عملهم ماذا يعملوا بأوروبا وماذا يعملوا حتى بأمريكا.